do you think that the coach was the difference on the night? Considering how close that game was?
So, like the coaches or specifically England's coach?
The coaches versus each other was the difference on the night. The two coaches that were in the dugout. Because I personally feel that Southgate lost England that game. Subs needed to be made. And then when he finally made the subs, he made the wrong subs at the wrong time. He lost the game. When you look in the other dugout, sorry, just before you continue, when you look in the other dugout, right? Honestly, Italy was under the cosh, made the right subs at the right times to get the momentum shift. And while literally England was holding on to Harry Kane for dear life when he was contributing nothing, etc. That's why I'm asking the question. So I just wanted to check from your side.
So from my side, firstly, I think England kind of the team on the game, they lost themselves the game and the manager too, right? The team, firstly, because there's only so much Gareth Southgate can do on the field, right? There's only so much in terms of play, right? So we saw from the match that in the first half, England were on top of Italy. Italy had no answers. But in the second half, those players themselves, it's almost like they settled for what they had and they rather retreated, right? Now, when we look at the different tactics that were applied, that's when I kind of blame Southgate, because I think Southgate almost told them, don't be too adventurous because it is a final. Let's try and lock in what we have and let's not go too crazy, right? Now, what Mancini saw was like, look, we're behind. Yes, we're behind, so let's go for it. But now the issue with Southgate is that Southgate definitely had better talent from the bench, 100%. Had better talent on the bench. His subs could have been better, but overall, for me, I just think England went up against a team that was just better prepared overall for the match, right? Honestly, there was no point where Italy's shoulders dropped in that match, unlike England.
But
even when they went to go down.
Like everything you're saying, I agree with you, right? But that's exactly why I'm blaming the coach. You're saying you can't blame the coach. I'm saying I can. Because here's the thing. England were all over Italy.
First half.
Let me just quickly finish. When everything was going according to their game plan, they were all over Italy. Italy got on top when their coach made a change. That's literally when the Italy coach started making changes. He brought on all his ball players, guys that could literally sit on the ball and just hold on to the ball for him. That's what he did. What did the England coach do?
To be fair, a lot of the two players that Mancini pulled out were having horrible games. He almost had no choice but to take them off.
But then the guys that he brought on an absolutely different dynamic. Even the way that he was playing England had changed. Now, why I brought up this conversation is a better manager realizes the tide is turning. Do you understand what I mean? A better manager
understand what
realizes
you're saying.
the tide is turning. Especially like you said in the beginning just now. Southgate had better talent on the bench. But he didn't use any of it.
I get what you're saying. A better coach does know when the tide is turning. But to be fair, specifically, now I can't speak around the other players, specifically around Harry Kane. Harry Kane, especially in the last 3-4 games, he has proven that even if he's not performing great, he does show up. Now, in that England game, why I say that you can rightfully blame Southgate is that in the first half and the second half, Harry Kane was doing two completely different things, right? Absolutely. In the first half, he was going back in and he was murdering the wings of Italy. Emerson and De Laurentiis had no answer. 100%. Now, that's where I'm saying I agree with you that Southgate flopped from a tactical standpoint in the lack of an adjustment, right? To be honest, his second half, changes made no sense. They made no sense. Even bringing in Rashford and Sancho so late in the game, even if you were like, yeah, I'm putting them in for penalties, you act like those players are only good for penalties, but like you can't just put those players only in for penalties.
Dude, like literally it was insanity, trying to do the same thing. It was literally trying to do the same thing the whole second half when you know it's not working. When you are literally sitting with the bench filled with talent. Grealish could have come on earlier. I don't think he had his best game, but he could have came on earlier. But anyway, let's not get into it. Honestly, at the end of the day, if you look at the tournament as a whole, I think the team that deserved to win the tournament
100%.
Because there's no way you can tell me 120th minute is when you are bringing on Rashford against literally the oldest defense in the tournament. You cannot tell me that you're struggling, you don't have the ball, right? It was
England so.
It was absolutely mind-blowing how
it
was just comfortable. But anyway,
I just think Southgate had just to round it off. I just think Southgate had trust that those players that he had put on initially would spark something. I feel like he saw the entire vibe of the stadium and thought we're gonna pull this off somehow, and that kind of disappointed him in a sense, and also his tactical submission. But anyway, I think let's
just before you move on, the racism incidents, the boys missing the penalties. I think we would have missed an opportunity if we just went on without at least saying.
Let's be honest.
These guys are full of nonsense.
We all knew it was going to happen the moment we saw. The moment we all kind of realized that, black. Oh my goodness, they're gonna face racist cop. It's almost expected.
I just have one question for you before we move on past this particular point. If you talk about the trust that he had in the players, right, to pull something off, where was the trust in those particular players for the penalties?
What do you mean? Where was the trust in those?
Surely he can also go, okay, I want you to take a penalty. I want you to take a penalty. I want you to take a penalty. So
which he did.
All of those experienced players that he had on the field that he did not want to take off to bring on these guys, right? Why did they not take penalties? Why ask Saka, who's a 19-year-old kid, to take the final penalty? To take the final penalty. Come on, man.
Look, I think we can only go with what he told the media after the game. And he said, we had practiced them. These are the players that were chosen. And this is why I chose them, right? And because of how they did in training. Personally, it makes zero sense. Because how many times had we seen Rashford in this past 3 games? So you're telling me out of the 11 that you have on the field that you knew were starters, you thought Rashford, the guy who hasn't played in at least 2-3 games, would be a penalty taker for you? It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Honestly, I had no problem with him bringing them on. I had a problem with him bringing them on in the 120th minute, when literally the whole second half, the game was calling for people who had life. The game was calling for England to pick up the tempo again, because all Italy did was slow the ball all the way down and control the tempo. That's all that Italy did. They took the bite out of it.
And that's literally the only time we saw Verratti and Jorginho. Literally the second half, they were controlling play. I'm like, okay, so England are clearly giving up now, at this point, because if I was them, I would be pressing higher, making sure that the Chiellini and Bonucci, they don't know how to play the ball with their feet. Why aren't you putting more pressure onto them? But